Hello and welcome to another episode of the Counseling Center podcast. My name is Tim Champlin. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the great state of Utah, and I am excited to be with you here today, talking about mental health, talking about tools, talking about ways that we can just improve our brains, our emotions, make life a little bit more positive, a little bit easier. And today is kind of a special, different thing because today we are recording video along with audio. So this is new for me, but so far so good. The Counseling Center podcast is a way for us to learn tools to supplement our mental health journey and therapy if we're in it. This podcast is not meant to replace mental health therapy. And with me today, I am back with my friend, colleague, should I say like other half, but Mikenna Giauqe.
Hello.
Mikenna, how's it going?
It's going really well. It's good
Good.
to be here. It's kind of fun to get to be three-dimensional human beings.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Usually, when we recorded a podcast last, it was kind of fun to get to be these, omniscient voices, and now we get to be human beings.
Yeah.
On the video.
So, new experiences are good for us,
Yeah,
right?
We're growing, we're learning, we're stretching.
Yes, we are. So for those who may or may not remember, Mikenna and I are, I don't know, like two sides of a coin.
Yeah. We both work at COPE. We both work at the Centerville office.
Yeah. So I said it before, and I'll say it again. When I'm with you in the same room, it's like, am I supposed to be here?
Yeah, is this the right location?
If Mikenna's here, should I be here?
This is bad news, which is weird because I really like getting to work with you, but it's always
it's
always
way
this
funny.
feeling of like, am I supposed to be in this location? Because we're always ships passing in the night. So when you're at the Centerville location, I'm at COPE, and when I'm at COPE, you're at the Centerville location. So we get to have we share offices, we get to have the experience of being like, your water bottle's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're like roommates and office mates, but we're never there at the same time.
Never
so it's like,
there at the
this is
same time.
Mikenna's stuff, this is my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good time. It's a way good time.
So, I'm trying to remember when we recorded our last episode together.
Yeah.
Was that like the winter time or was it like fall?
I think it was fall.
Fall. Oh, I think,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, I've gotten some more training since then, so maybe I should reintroduce myself.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself again. Remind us who you are. Remind us kind of what your specializations are. And just whatever else.
Yeah. So my name is Mikenna Giauqe. I'm an associate clinical mental health counselor. I'm about to apply to become a clinical mental health counselor, and that's crazy that that's on the horizon. Not immediate horizon, but it's coming up. And I am trained in EMDR, so eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's a really incredible form of trauma therapy. And I work primarily with kids. My youngest client is 2, all the way up to usually about 12, and then usually at that point I'll find if we're a good fit, then we'll work together, and then sometimes I have other therapists that really specialize with teens. So little kids, and then adults that have experiences with trauma that they would like to address through mental health counseling.
So do you not work a whole lot with teenagers?
It's interesting. I really do have quite a few teenagers, and I really love working with them. So I work across the lifespan, but in terms of the focus, in terms of, the clients that I'm like, hey, these are the clients that I have additional specialization in. That's going to be little kids and then adults with traumatic experiences.
Cool.
So still trained, still equipped to work with teens, but those are my populations that are a little bit more, niche.
And I know you like to do a lot of play therapy and art therapy.
Yeah, yep. So in terms of how I work with actually everybody, I really love getting to do play therapy. Play therapy is a great way for things that maybe don't translate into verbal communication. That's a great way for things to be expressed, especially when you're working with a 2, 3, 4-year-old where the experiences and the emotions that they want to convey don't match their level of communication.
Yeah.
And so that's where the play is really helpful. And then I'm a big fan of art therapy, expressive arts therapy. I think that it's really incredible to get to see all the ways that adults and teens and kids all want to express the things that they're experiencing through art. So yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome. It's one of the things I love lots of things about therapy, but one of the things I love about therapy is how you can mold it to just like, what am I interested in as a person?
Yeah.
What kind of work do I want to do? What fits with my personality? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it, we're both big nerds, and so there's a fun way too where you get to mold like, hey, I'm interested in all this nerd stuff. Is that something you're interested in? Oh, is that a great way
I love
to
that.
start getting some more ground on this work that we're doing? So yeah, that's also a fun thing. A little side of this. There's like, I feel like there's this experience of I'm a therapist, and then there's this looming nerd in the background that's just waiting for an opportunity
That's
to be like, and do you want to be a nerd too in therapy?
How can I reference a movie?
How can I reference a book?
A book.
Do you want to play Magic the Gathering as a way to practice emotion regulation? Oh, really? Oh, cool. Well, you just got knocked out by a 4-4.
Boom. Sorry. Do some deep breathing. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be all right.
And I don't know if I know I've probably mentioned this to you before, but like one of my dreams is whenever I feel like I have the mental capacity for it.
Yeah.
Is to facilitate like a D&D therapy group.
Absolutely.
So,
please.
If
I would love to
if I do that, would you? Yeah, would you?
I would totally
Awesome.
co-facilitate that. I've been doing D&D with my 4-year-olds, where they set up a game, and then they're rolling dice, and then they have to have the dice determine the outcomes, and sometimes those outcomes are awful, and then we work with how that feels.
Oh, that's so cool.
Isn't that cool?
Man.
So we're doing a little mini D&D right now.
Okay.
It's a good time.
That just is so good to hear.
It's
That's
so
awesome.
good. And they're like, it's so great. The best moment that I had like 2 weeks ago was a kid rolled and they were like, do you want to do a perception check on that? And they're 4. And I was just like, yes, I do. So anyways.
That's
wow,
awesome. That's so fun.
We could go on and on.
So, and actually, as we talk about our topic today, there is a movie that we may be referencing and talking about because it goes along right with this topic.
Mm-hmm.
But Mikenna, I will let you introduce the topic.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about core beliefs.
Okay, we are talking about core beliefs. And why did you feel like it, when we were talking about like doing this, what about this subject where you're like, I want to talk to Tim about this and get this recorded for the world to hear?
Yeah. I really think that core beliefs are a powerful way to see from an outside perspective looking in, okay, what are some of the building blocks that are influencing how I experience myself and how I experience the world? And I really think that core beliefs can be a helpful tool to start putting pieces together where, oh, I feel this way when I am doing this experience and when I'm doing this experience because they're both tapping into the same core belief.
So would you say are like part of core beliefs kind of figuring out like the why in some ways? Like why am I, why do I act this way? Why do I see the world? Or, why do I maybe have trouble trusting others in certain situations?
I think that's a big part. And also I think it's about exploring maybe there's a core belief that's been beneficial in the past and it was a really helpful tool that got the brain through a super stressful experience, and now it's not serving the experiences that we're having. We're in need of a software update. And so I think it's both about the why and also giving compassion to, oh, hey, this core belief is something that my brain is using to try to help me, and I can also give my brain additional information so that core belief is actually helping me.
Right, okay. No, that's awesome. So, what is a core belief?
A core belief,
I come into therapy and you're talking about core beliefs. I'm like, wait a second, tell me about that.
Yeah. So I like to think of core beliefs as a set of sunglasses that are slowly materializing. It's like these cool sunglasses that were once invisible that somehow become opaque, So it's a way that you're viewing the world. So for example, maybe a core belief for someone is I'm safe, or a core belief is I did the best in that situation with the information that I had. And so a core belief is essentially like your brain giving you, okay, this is how we can perceive the world. This is how we can perceive ourselves. And I think sometimes it's helpful to give a little bit of differentiation between core beliefs and core values. So core beliefs are, I see the world this way. I experience myself this way. So maybe someone's core belief is I'm broken, or someone's core belief is I am not safe. And that is a way that their brain experiences the world. Core values are things that some people see them as pillars or ways that they want to guide their life. So maybe someone has a core value of generosity, or a core value of trust or faith, or work ethic. Those are pillars that some people see as like, okay, this is what I want to have guiding my life. Or some people see them as aspirational. So the difference between a core belief and a value is a belief is, okay, this is how I am seeing the world, and a value is a lot more about this is how I want to live my life. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
There's some overlap, but sometimes I think it's helpful to go, okay, core beliefs can sometimes be really heavily influenced by experiences that made us feel unsafe. Core values are sometimes about like, okay, let's figure out how I want to live my life, things that are important to me.
I'm taking all the information you're giving me and I'm sorting it all out.
It's a tidal wave of information.
I'm very passionate about like the core values.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like what you said about core values being like pillars.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I think for me it's like this compass of like, okay, like if my life does not look the way I want it to,
Mm-hmm.
let me review or explore what my values might be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time we might be surprised in that if we're not feeling super great about life,
Mm-hmm.
we may not be aligned with our values.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm quite familiar kind of like with that idea. And so beliefs are, this is how I see everything,
Mm-hmm.
myself, other
Yeah.
people, the world. And would you say core values is this is the way maybe I think it should be more like?
Yeah. Someone could have a value of trust. I want to trust. And that same person could still have underneath a core belief of I'm not safe. And so sometimes that is where feelings of distress come, is when our core belief and our core values are at odds with each other,
Mm-hmm.
where there's this feeling of I want to trust. I want to have the experience of trusting the people around me, but because of the experiences that I've had, there is still this core belief that I'm not safe.
Right. Okay. So speaking of like nerding out about stuff,
Yeah.
I have been really interested in the idea of like, have you heard of the World Happiness Report?
Yes.
Okay. So it's just, I forget, there's an organization that does all this research every year that decides or like ranks the countries in the world by like how happy they are.
Yeah.
And they also look at like what are they doing
Mm-hmm.
that maybe makes them happier than other countries.
Right.
And for example, one of those things that these happier countries do is they tend to have more trust, let's say like in their communities
Yeah.
and the people around them. And so just using that as kind of like an example, like I can value trust.
Mm-hmm.
I can value it's important for me to trust the people around me. And I also understand that if I work at that can bring me happiness. But I might have had experiences in the
Yes.
past where it's like,
Yeah.
but I don't, or I struggle with having trust.
Absolutely. And so I think it's so helpful how core beliefs and core values, when you put them together, that's where the rubber meets the road. And you get to go, okay, wait, so if I do have the value of trust, but I still have this feeling of unsafety, then maybe I can explore how these things can start meeting each other in the middle and having more feelings of safety. Or some people have such a strong core belief that starts influencing their core values, where maybe they have such an intense experience of feeling betrayed, of feeling like they're not safe, their core belief is I can't trust, then that might increase their feelings of, oh, well, my value is independence, or my value is self-reliance, which isn't bad. Those are worthwhile values.
Sure, yeah.
Those are things that could be really helpful to explore. But sometimes it's interesting to see where there's some potential influence coming from one end or the other. And I think it's just helpful to start naming things, and then that makes it a lot easier to see what we want to do with them.
So you've touched a little bit about, or I think you have anyways, about where core beliefs come from, and I think you referenced like trauma. But yeah, can you talk just a little bit more about that, and just a little bit, like where does we're not newborn babies with these core beliefs. Where do they come from?
Right. So oftentimes core beliefs come from a whole bunch of places. It's not, I mean, there could be a really significant experience that completely shapes a core belief, but I like to think of it as just lots of small things adding up, and then maybe there's a big thing that really just sets that core belief into stone. So, for example, maybe someone has a traumatic experience and their brain says, wow, that was so awful that I want to do everything possible to make sure that that doesn't happen again, even if that is something that is completely out of our control and our brain can't reasonably make sure that that doesn't happen again. But our brain wants to keep us safe, even if that makes us feel anxious or depressed in the moment. So maybe someone has a negative experience and it gives such a profound sense of unsafety that their brain says, I'm unsafe. And so then that turns into a core belief that shapes other experiences where their brain goes, hey, I'm unsafe, not just in this situation, but in other situations. On the flip side, core beliefs don't have to inherently be something that creates feelings of distress. Maybe someone has a really consistent, profoundly safe relationship, and that just starts adding change to their piggy bank of, I can trust others. And so I think it's helpful to sometimes see about, I'll talk with clients a lot about their core belief piggy bank where, okay, let's put $1 in that today and see what it's like to just give your brain a little bit more leverage in the sense of I am whole or I can trust myself.
I love that. And it's just interesting because like I don't use like the verbiage like core belief as often, like when I'm working with people, but like all these concepts are very much aligned with like a lot of work I think a lot of work I also do. You and I work pretty often with, what's the phrase you use with like people becoming adults?
Emerging adults.
Emerging adults, thank you, yes.
Yeah.
And so, and for example, like I have one right now who, they are having just a lot of anxiety of like, how do I do this adult thing? And it feels really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we talk about is like, well, like we need to figure out things that you can do right now that you can find success in.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, I went to the grocery store and I learned how to buy bananas. Like, okay, like all of a sudden, like maybe I can do this adult thing. And so that's an example of like
adding change to your piggy bank.
This core belief can change for going from being an adult is scary and overwhelming to maybe I can do this.
Yeah, I feel competent.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think that it's so cool when working with emerging adults to see how sometimes those core beliefs are things that they're willing to be like, hey, wait a second. I didn't choose this. This wasn't necessarily something that I chose. Maybe this was something that was in my environment. Maybe there was an environment of others are seeking out to take advantage of you. You got to really be on your guard. And so sometimes it's helpful to go, well, hey, wait, is this a core belief that I chose? Or is this a core belief that is potentially influenced by something that I didn't choose? And so I think it's really cool to get to see, oh, hey, wait, I'm an emerging adult. I get to see how I want my life to look. And that can include going, do I want this core belief, or is this something that I want to see if there's something else?
And so I love what you're saying right there, because what I hear you saying is we don't have to be like victims of our belief. We can choose what our core beliefs are.
Yes. Brain explosion. It's like,
well, yeah. It's just, I feel like that can be so empowering.
Yes.
So I'm curious, when you meet with clients, whether it's kiddos or adults, what are some of the core beliefs that you are seeing at first? Like what ones pop up pretty often?
I'm broken is really, really consistent. I have a list that I got when I was doing my EMDR training, and I think that it's really interesting sometimes, especially when I'm working with adults, to just hand them the list and say, hey, is there anything off of this menu that resonates with you? And I am just really struck by how often I'm broken is selected, where people feel like I'm broken. I'm in therapy because I'm broken. And I just think that that is such a heavy place to be. And I just feel so honored when I get to sit with people as they're feeling that, because that just has this whole backlog of shame attached to it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really powerful to start going, okay, so I have the core belief that I'm broken. What do I want to do with that next? And oftentimes we just sit with it for a little while and just give that core belief some sunlight, because shame doesn't really thrive in the sunlight. And I think it's really powerful to start exploring, okay, well, what's another core belief that maybe you want to hold at the same time? Even if you're not quite ready to set down I'm broken, is there another core belief that you want to experiment holding at the same time?
That's awesome. So I'm broken. That's the big one.
I'm broken. I think a big one tied to feelings of regret is I wish I made a different choice.
Yep. I see that one a lot too.
I wish I made a different choice, or I am not safe. That's a really common one. And I think that it's interesting too to see how when I'm working with kids, they're not going to say, oh yes, I'm going to look at this list. I'm 4 years old. I'm going to pick this one, But
I woke up today and I realized
I can read.
I don't feel safe in this world.
Yeah, right. So usually when I'm working with littles, I'm not handing them a list. But I do see that there's a lot of I'm angry, or when I'm playing with a kid and I just see every single time that they play a story and there's a big monster and the monster's just terrorizing everything, and at the end of the story I'll say, and which toy are you? And they say, I'm the monster. And I just see that every time, session after session, they're always the monster in the story. That makes me go, oh, I wonder if there's a core belief that I'm destructive, or a core belief that I'm out of control. And so I think that it's really powerful to see that those core beliefs are squishy. Those core beliefs don't have to be forever, and we can start exploring ways to have another core belief start to take root. And eventually our brain is sending so much energy towards the new core belief that our brain just atrophies the old core belief and it doesn't need to be tended anymore.
I think one of the biggest core beliefs I see most often is I'm unlovable.
Yep.
I'm unlikable. People don't like me. I can't do anything right.
Yeah.
I think those are some big ones that I see as well.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is that we can change this, right? We can
Absolutely.
We can kind of rewrite the narrative in our brains.
Yeah.
Does truth matter? And what I mean by that is we're assuming these are true, right? And we kind of are taking maybe some experiences of, well, this thing happened.
Yeah.
And that must mean, you know, maybe my dad left when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Well, why did he leave, right? That must mean I'm unlovable.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you work with how do you navigate that? I know kind of my feeling of that, but I'm curious.
So I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's hard to set down core beliefs, even if they're painful. So I've worked with people before that feel really like, oh, I have a really hard time sitting with the idea of coming up with a different core belief. And I think sometimes if we took a total step back and we were just like looking at this logically, it would be like, oh my gosh, this thing is so painful. Why isn't that something you want to just immediately set down? And it's because sometimes there's this fear Not always, but sometimes there's this potential fear that if we set down that core belief, then maybe it feels like that bad experience didn't happen. And that could feel invalidating. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to go, hey, you know what? This core belief is coming from a place that's really painful, and it's coming from a place of your brain in a really sometimes interesting way trying to keep you safe, even if you're unhappy. And so I think it's helpful to sometimes go, hey, you know what? That core belief was there for, it was trying to serve a purpose, it's achy, and now we can start exploring, okay, how do you want to hold the achy experience while finding something that's going to match the experiences you want to have in the future? Because sometimes that core belief of I'm unlovable makes it so that it's hard to have experiences where you get to feel loved.
Yeah. Where it's like, yes, these situations did happen. Like that's a fact. That's reality, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think we as humans, especially maybe like pre-therapy, our problem solving with that kind of stuff lacks a little bit. And so it's like, okay, so if my dad left when I was young, that means I can never get close to someone ever, so that I don't get hurt.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is okay, like that, we can acknowledge that did happen. That's painful.
Yeah.
But there's probably other ways to kind of shift how you think of that.
Right.
So that you can honor that happening, how that affected you, and also open yourself up to having experiences where people are close to you, and therefore, like you also said, kind of putting those experiences in that bank of, oh well, maybe dad left, but man, I've got, I have a romantic partner, I have friends, my relationship with my mom is really strong. Like I have all these people that are here and that seem to want me to be here.
Right. And I think too, when I'm looking at, okay, this person has come to me and they're saying, hey, I want therapy and I want to talk about this core belief. The main things that I start exploring is, one, let's explore that core belief and let's name it. And then two, sometimes we just need to sit in the hurt and just go, hey, you know what? I know we've done all this work to identify the story. We've talked about the why. Let's just set that down for a minute and just say, I hurt. And just sit with that and give your brain permission to feel that. Because I think it's really powerful to just practice that mindfulness. And then once it's like, okay, I've been able to validate the hurt, then we can start exploring, okay, how do you want to start maybe just leaning a little bit towards a core belief that's going to help you feel safe. And that can start including phrases like, I'm beginning to believe, or I'm experimenting with trusting, or I'm curious about feeling that I can be loved.
Taking those baby steps into the more helpful belief.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are some ways, and you're talking right now about just like helping clients kind of just start to shift towards these beliefs that are, I'd say, more helpful and probably more true as well.
Yeah.
What strategies, how specifically do you work with clients?
Great question, Tim. So how do we go about shifting these core beliefs in therapy? So there are two main therapies that I really think are beneficial. Obviously, there are others that I think can be really helpful as well. There's lots of different ways that different therapists go about it. But I think that cognitive behavioral therapy can be really helpful, and EMDR. So CBT has some tools that can be helpful for people. So there's this list of cognitive distortions that everyone uses. And when I talk to clients about this, I want to highlight that it's not a question of, are you going to do cognitive distortions or are you not? I do cognitive distortions all day long. Like I've already done probably like 7 and it's not even 9 in the morning. And so it's not a question of if you're going to do them. It's just a question of, okay, so am I going to get into a place of being able to name them? And then am I going to get into a place of being able to go, hey, I'm just going to give myself some compassion and I'm going to offer myself some other options. So for example, maybe someone has a core belief of, I am not worthy of love. And sometimes that core belief has some attempts to predict the future along with it, where they're saying, hey, I'm going to go to a party and nobody there's going to want to hang out with me. What's the point of going? And so then it could be helpful to go, all right, hey, no worries. That's a thought that I'm having. am I trying to predict the future right now? Okay, yeah, my brain is trying to keep me safe. Are there some other things that could happen? Maybe I could go to this party and I could meet somebody and they also have the super niche interest that I have. Or maybe I could go to this party and I could have a free dinner. And then I could be like, sweet, I just did a little baby step. I put some money in the bank where even if I didn't talk to anybody, I got to go and have an experience that could maybe get me closer to feeling close to someone in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
naming like, okay, am I trying to predict the future? Am I trying to mind read right now? Am I trying to do something to make my brain feel safe? And maybe it's kind of feeling achy at the same time. So I think CBT can have some helpful tools, especially when people are like, I just need tools. And I'm like, cool, here's some tools. Let's look at these. And then, especially when we're looking at core beliefs that have been shaped by trauma, EMDR is a really awesome option for a lot of people. There are also other forms of trauma therapy. ART is a really great option that lots of clinicians work with and have great success with. I'm trained in EMDR, and EMDR is really where I got super into core beliefs because the way that I approach EMDR, it's all about core beliefs. You know, there's the experience that has brought someone into therapy. Maybe they said, hey, I was in a really awful car accident, and I am saying, oh, wow, that's really painful. And then once we start realizing it's actually, there's been a core belief that's underneath all of this. And then once we start exploring that and giving their brain opportunities to feel safe and giving their brain opportunities to just sit with that core belief and seeing what's coming up, then that can provide some relief.
Mikenna, this has been awesome. Anything else that you want to make sure you put out there before, as we kind of wrap up this episode for today?
My final words.
No pressure.
I think there's so much compassion in exploring core beliefs. I think there's so much space to see our brains and see the world through a lens of compassion. And I think that there's so much space to see the world and our brains through a space of curiosity. And I am so passionate about core beliefs, and I think I probably always will be passionate about core beliefs because they seem to be this little compass that gives you a little bit of space to see where you want to go next and see what possibilities lie ahead. And I think it's just really powerful to see what it's like to be curious and what it's like to give our brains a little bit of space. And truly, if I could just hand out blankets of compassion, then I think that would be something that I would choose to do.
Thank you so much for being with me here today.
Yeah, of course.
And I think this is a really powerful topic.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And if you're listening and watching this, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you're doing well. If you're not doing well, I hope that you are coping well. I hope that you're using skills. I hope that you're, hopefully you can take something from this to add into what else you're doing to kind of keep yourself going. But we will have more upcoming future episodes. And until then, we'll catch you later.